This one is one that I know a lot of people have been looking forward to. There's been a lot of announcement about this over the Twitter sphere, and I think there's going to be some surprise announcement. So who do we have? We have Mark Schultz, and he is somebody that I'm very familiar with because he's a teacher at M.academy. And if you know anything about certification for Magento, you've been there. So Mark is a passionate person. He's been with the Magento community for like decades. He started back in the early days of e-commerce and PHP, and he looks young and his lighting is amazing. But I can tell you, like, he's been doing this over 20 years, people, over 20 years. So he has many organizations ranging from junior developer. He's been everywhere. He's done everything, right? So he's done junior developer to chief solution architect. Mark has spoken at loads of conferences such as Magento Imagine, Meet Magento New York. His full stack programming expertise paved the way for him becoming like a Zend certified engineer and Adobe certified Magento developer. So Mark is talented, people. Also, you know, because he's the founder of M.academy, curating lesson courses, he's all about learning and he's passionate about teaching. Similar to myself, I think he comes from an education background and he just wants to make sure that he level up people and give people opportunity to be successful. So Mark is married to a wonderful wife, Juliann. They have they're proud parents of twin girls. So he has his handful, Lily and Brielle. And Mark lives in Northeast Ohio. And if anybody's a basketball fan, which I am, you know, we're all about the Cleveland Cavaliers when LeBron was there. Unfortunately, he's in LA now. So, but Mark likes eating chipotle burritos and solving Rubik's cubes and watching the Cleveland Browns football games. Mark, I'm pinning you up because I know this one's gonna be a good one. So over to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Dwayne. Yeah, this talk, beginner to certified, it's just to answer common how do I get certified questions. It's covering my journey and struggles with Magento, steps I use to pass the exam, and what to do after you pass or fail. So let's get started. Dwayne touched base on most of this, but I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm married, wonderful wife, Juliann, and we have twin 7-year-old girls. I've been a programmer for over 20 years. I'm self-taught. I don't have a college degree, but I have multiple certs in Adobe and Magento and Zend. And I am a Magento teacher at M.academy. So I started PHP programming in sort of a chop shop. I didn't know much of anything. Coworkers showed me Zend and Magento at the time, which were like the new and upcoming trendy frameworks. And yeah, when he showed me the Magento directory structure and files, this was my first impression. You know, are you stupid or something, right? Like, I thought I knew a little more than I did. And anyone new to Magento is just overwhelmed with all of the files and structure. So they think it's stupid, overbuilt, unnecessary. Some may still think that, but of course I knew better and I was smarter than the framework, and yeah, just kind of ignored it. But fast forward a few years, and this was me. This is supposed to be Magneto, if you get the reference. So yeah, I just sort of fell in love with Magento. This was Magento 1, and I learned all about it, got certified, created modules, worked on a lot of projects. Things were really great. And then Magento 2 came out, and this is how I felt. I'm just not a smart man. I built docker-magento, which is the most popular dev environment for Magento 2. And I tried to dive into it, but it was just really hard for me. Documentation was really great, but I just didn't get it. I didn't understand it. There's just too much terminology, design patterns, and I just felt stupid. I left and actually did Laravel for a year, but after a year, I sort of missed e-commerce and I missed Magento for some reason. So I just can't explain it. Felt like I had unfinished business. So I decided to finally learn Magento, you know, once and for all. And I did this by letting Magento kill me. So I posted this funny tweet a while ago. It says, find what you love and let it kill you. And you can go read about it. But I also wrote a related blog post that says, let Magento kill you. And it's sort of getting past the initial resistance and picking one thing and going all in on it. So I decided to do this, and great documentary, Jiro Dreams of Sushi. If you haven't watched it, definitely go watch it. It's a must for any creator, but it talks about getting past that initial resistance and just going all in on something. So yeah, let's really get started. So which cert should you go for first? I would recommend the Adobe Commerce Developer Cert, which used to be called the Associate Developer Cert. I actually did the business practitioner one first, and it was very, very difficult, a lot of terminology and business aspect. But I would recommend everyone to start with this Associate Dev Cert. So you pretty much have 3 steps to pass this cert. First, you have to understand the architecture. You have to prep for the tests, and you should learn some test taking strategies. Most people just focus on number 2, prepping for the test. And if you do that, you're going to wind up being confused, lost, or just not know the material really, and if you don't have test taking strategies, you can know the material, but not do well on the test. So step 1 is understanding the architecture. And I recommend just taking a step back and just focusing on the fundamentals. So this is my favorite interview question. I've interviewed a lot of devs over the years for developer and architect positions. And what is dependency injection? And you'd be surprised, about 90% of people just can't answer this. And so many want to get certified and they still can't answer this question. So let's talk over quickly about what dependency injection is. So normally when you create a class or an object in Magento, use the new keyword right where you want to within your own class. And dependency injection, all this is another class instantiating your dependencies and your objects for you. And then it returns that object to your original class. And object manager is the name of this class that creates these objects for you, which is also called the dependency injection container. So that's pretty much all dependency injection is. It's actually pretty simple. It took me a while to grasp this concept myself, but why would you use dependency injection? It's another great question. It decouples dependencies directly from your code, makes things easier to test. And since one class can now control how objects are created, you can add some magic to those objects, which is actually what Magento does, like helper methods and so on. So you kind of need to understand what's going on behind the curtain with these terminologies and aspects. So it's not just dependency injection, but everything else in Magento. You really have to focus and understand how it works. And it's still like this kind of, for me, I just don't get something unless I truly understand it. And there's just so much to take in, right? You have extension attributes, all these interfaces, interceptors, all these weird names. You just have to take a breath and focus on one thing at a time. Slow down. It's just all overwhelming, but if you just focus on one thing, it'll make things drastically easier. And try not to get overwhelmed with the terminology. They're just names for certain patterns or things to do, just like the dependency injection example. So how do you learn the most complex e-commerce framework there is? Well, there's a few ways. The first resource I always recommend to everybody is the Dev Docs. It's an amazing resource. It's something we wish we had with Magento 1. And sure, there's some typos and bugs here and there, but overall, it's just an amazing resource. I'm extremely, fantastic that we have this. And it's just tons of documentation and it's added and updated every day. So definitely start with the Dev Docs. The core code. So crack open your IDE and look through the core code. Just like Magento 1, you'll start to see some certain patterns emerge and you'll truly understand how things work the way they do if you dive deep enough. Well, at least 80% of it, right? There's always certain aspects of the framework that you just won't understand. And that's okay, right? I teach it and I still don't understand everything about it. So it's okay not to know everything. And there's also paid resources. One example is my site, which I offer courses to learn Magento. It's M.academy. and they can speed up the time to just get something, right, and truly understand it. You don't have to scour over the entire internet to look for certain examples or find out how to do things. So there's a Kickstart for Magento 2 itself, there's just JavaScript fundamentals and so on. And there's also continued education with the university plan. And there's also some other great options out there. You can look around and find them. So you also need some real world experience. If you know it, you should be able to prove what you know. That's sort of the gist of the certification. So you build a real module, find something open source or an idea on the marketplace and try to rebuild it. That's how you will gain true real world experience, and it'll really help refine all of your knowledge about Magento. Many try to bypass this step and just don't, because you can't. Step 2, once you have a solid understanding of the fundamentals and foundation of Magento 2, you need some sort of process to pass these exams. So the skill level on these certs is extremely difficult. Do not think it's easy. So I'll show my scores from the test that I actually took. I scored 87% on both tests the first time I took them. And it wasn't by accident. I didn't want to spend money on retakes, and I didn't want to go through all the time and effort it takes to restudy and reschedule an exam. So it's an extremely good score because there's only 68% needed to pass. I'm not bragging here. I just wanted to show that if I can do it with my struggles of Magento, you definitely can. I was really confused about Magento 2, and I'm actually a very slow learner, but I was still able to pass it. So how did I do it? Why do you think you can get certified if you don't understand the fundamentals? That's core. So that's entire reason for taking the test. You also need working experience with M2, and you need to gain some prep and strategies of passing this test. Because even experienced devs, they can come across a question that's asked a certain way and they won't be able to answer it. So you need to set some conditions. So you go all in. Once you decide to get certified, take it. Don't change your mind. Set some constraints. Set a date and work towards it. Pick maybe a date a month out, and that would be a good time frame. And then commit to the test. So once you decide to do it, just do it and follow through. So the first step in cert prep, I always recommend everyone to take Swift Otter's practice tests. They're fantastic. You could take 4 tests, I think, for $25, so it's really cheap. And you need to be honest with yourself the first time you take it. Don't cheat or take it more than once right away. You're just kind of cheating yourself. And the initial cert test helps set a baseline of your knowledge about Magento for the certs. So it can be great to just start with. So I always take the practice test knowing I'm going to ace it, right? And this was my score the first time I took it, 63%. So, and they also have predicted likelihood that you'll pass. Maxwell says it's very accurate. So I believe him, but I don't want a chance of 54% when I'm spending a lot of money on the cert. So you don't want to be disconcerted. I have a couple certs and I always do bad on practice tests. I'm sure even new ones. So this tells you what you don't know, which is a good thing, and tells you what you should focus on. So different objectives down below in this result set that you're good at, just ignore because you already know it. You want to focus on the items that you don't know. So this is a test question that popped up on Twitter a few days back. So it's a good practice test for the exam. So let's read it through and see if you know the answer. Suppose you have raw SQLs in an upgrade schema file. Which command would you use to convert them to DB schema XML files? So it's actually a really easy question to answer if you have Magento experience, and have test taking experience, but let's break it down. You want to really deduce and eliminate answers. So the first, setup install. If you're familiar with Magento at all, you know that this is used when you're setting up a new Magento instance. So that could be scrapped. And the setup DB declaration generate patch, that's used to generate data patch scripts, which is not what the question is asking for. So that can also be thrown out. So this leaves 2 and 4. So most people who get this answer wrong will choose one of these options. So let's reread the question, look how it's phrased. And you want to look for a specific keyword or phrase in the question that stands out. And when I do this, I see raw sequels. That sort of stands out to me. And that tells you the direction and the focus of the question. And then you also want to check the verbiage in the answers. Just because this verbiage contains raw sequels also doesn't mean it's the answer, but it gives you a hint of what they're looking for you to prove with this question. So it's probably something, it doesn't mean it's the answer, right? But it very well could be. The setup upgrade automatically convert raw sequels to DB schema files. And that's sort of the question that they're asking, right? And once you deduce and eliminate that setup upgrade cannot convert raw sequels, it's just that available tool doesn't convert raw SQL statements, that's your answer. You can look for an answer to also be proved wrong, which will help you get to the correct answer. There's questions that will be similar, but not exactly like this on practice tests. Richard Feynman has a great quote. He's an astrophysicist that was around a long time ago. And understand, don't memorize, learn principles, not formulas. And it's important to understand the underlying concept rather than focusing on specific answers. I've heard of people who actually purchase brain dumps for certs and they've actually failed miserably. It's designed to be extremely difficult. And that makes just earning the cert so much more respected. So you want to focus on the core concept of what's being asked, not the direct answers. Study guides, I'm actually not a big fan. So they're usually bloated, they're huge, stuffed with tons of information. They're dumping you all of the info that may or may not be on the test. And it's just too much info. It can be good to glance over the main topics and the larger topics. Otherwise, I don't think they'll help you too much. So focus on the process and reasoning rather than brute strength of trying to remember specific questions and answers. Now repeat the process after you've done some studying and cert prep, right? Retake the practice test and see how you do. So you may get questions that are also not in the first pool of questions, which is good. If you fail or do poor on any of these, don't worry, just take a step back and just repeat the process and stay committed to the process. And when you're finally ready, let's say you have a high percentage passing score in this practice test, or you're very confident, just schedule it already. It's easy to put it off once you already know all this stuff because of either fear of unknown or fear of failure. So don't continue though, unless you're pretty darn sure you're going to pass. You don't want to repeat this entire process. It takes a lot of time. Step 3 is some test taking strategies. So if you know your fundamentals and have studied for the test, this is the last step is prep. While I don't have a college degree at all, I did go to a college prep high school, and they taught me some certain strategies to pass these exams, and they helped tremendously. So we've all seen this meme, right? It's just so overwhelming to remember everything that's going on, but you shouldn't get overwhelmed at this point. You already know this stuff, and you've actually proved it in the practice test. So when you're finally in the test center, just try to calm down and focus on the test. If you're stuck or don't know something, don't answer it. At the end of the test, you can review questions that you haven't answered very easily. And many of the times you see a question the second time, it'll make a lot more sense after a mental break. And you kind of know something, I believe there's a star flag in that actual exam when you take it. So again, try it to find, star it, revisit it later, and then try to find a specific situation that they're asking you to prove. So the test is all situation based. If you're really confused, focus on the keywords they're asking and the point they are really trying to get across. They're testing and looking for you to know a specific piece of knowledge. So just keep that in mind. So use the time. You get 2 hours for all the tests, I believe. So 2 hours is a lot of time. They give you a lot, use all of it. So you don't get any extra points for finishing early. No one really knows how long you took to take this exam. So I routinely use almost this entire time allotment when I take the test. And I'm a slow test taker, but more importantly, I want to do my best to make sure I pass this one in single time. So I'll go through the entire test probably and all the questions and answers about 3 times. Seriously check over everything until you're super confident to submit it. If you're frustrated or overwhelmed at any point in the test, walk out of the room. So I've always went to testing centers to take my test. I prefer to stay focused in a closed off room outside of my house where my kids and sounds can't distract me. But I don't know if this applies to remote testing, so you'll have to look into that. But a big advantage of taking it at the test centers, you can walk out of the room. You can go to the bathroom. You could do breathing exercises. So take 5 minutes, right? You'll have plenty of time to finish this task and just try to calm down and get a clear headspace. I get really nervous on tests. I think you could break even multiple times, so take as much as you can. Wear earplugs. So most people don't even know how to put earplugs in. You want to squeeze them and stuff them in your ear and hold them for 30 seconds to completely block out the sounds. I'm completely very sensitive to sounds and distractions. The clicking in any keyboard in the testing center can drive me crazy, or someone entering and leaving the room. So earplugs really help you focus so you can focus directly on the test. If you just really don't know the answer, pick a number or letter before you start the test, either A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say 3 or C. So every question you don't know gets this answer. It could, if you can't make an educated guess or think they're tricking you, just put down C. I remember completely bombing out a history test in high school, and I actually still passed, barely, but it's because all my guesses had the answer C, and apparently the math worked out. So it's a hack that my math teacher taught me in high school, and it works. And also remember that you can miss a lot of the questions on the test and still pass. So when you're ready to review your test, you'll know the results right when you visit that desk after you submit your cert. It's always stressful waiting for the results. And if you fail, use it as a learning experience. You just went through a big learning process, and you've now done this before, right? You know what to expect, and you know what to focus on. And you won't know the specific questions you got wrong, but you'll have an idea and a general reasoning of the ones you've missed, because they would have felt awkward or weird to you, or you wouldn't have known the answer directly. Try to memorize those questions best you can and focus on the answers when you leave the testing facility. And you can also retake the exam 5 times, and you also get a 20% discount on retakes. So there are some silver linings to failing. But there's also only one thing that matters, that you pass the exam. The score doesn't matter at all. This is a pass-fail exam. So it's not a percentage, and no one knows those results unless you tell them. So if you get a 68%, great, you passed. So after you pass, right, congratulations, you did it. Share your badge every place online. In a few days, you'll have your cert badge emailed to your address. Share it everywhere. It's really a great accomplishment and something to be proud of. Now you also have a duty to help out your coworkers and friends of others to pass this test. You want to share your own strategies that you devised along the way. Maybe you learned something specific or came across something that stumbled you up, and it might help others on the test as well. So thanks a lot. I blazed through this really fast. But thanks a lot. If you want to follow me, reach out. My username everywhere is Mark Shust, and so check out M.academy. And I am also launching a new social platform for Magento called Campus today. You can go to M.academy and click the Campus link. It's completely free to register. So I hope a lot of you go up there and join. There's going to be a lot of great stuff up there. Thanks a lot.
Hello.
Hello.
Mark.
Sorry.
I don't know.
I can get your audio right away.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Mark. It was a pleasure to have you. And I think I got a couple of questions. You know, if you failed that test by like 1%, and it has happened, believe it, it has happened.
Yeah.
How soon would you go back and resit a Magento exam?
One question, maybe a week. I would almost focus on a few, right? Try to focus on 2 or 3 more days. It's all, the reason being, it's all fresh in your mind, right? If you lapse too much time, you might forget all that knowledge. So I would really focus on those items that stumbled up on, stumbled you up, and it probably won't take much to pass it again.
Oh, thanks for that. I'll try that next time.
I think so every time you retake it too, you have to wait longer, but I believe the first retake you don't have to. The second retake you have to wait a week. Yeah,
that's true. So Campus, you want to tell us a little bit about who would be ideal people to be joining Campus? Is that for everybody or just for
every Magento developer? It's aimed definitely at developers. There's a debugging help space where you can post questions, similar to Stack Overflow, only you'll get a lot of probably different questions and answers there. And it's a great place to just hang out and chat. Also, there's places to I find it hard sometimes to converse with other Magento developers, places it's not that personal, and Slack notifications can get overwhelming. So this is just a great alternative to that.
So I think one of the questions is about mastering, say for instance, you wanted to do JavaScript and Knockout.js is something that you might struggle with, and it's very specific to the area that you struggle with. Is it the case where you focus on that, or do you focus on, because obviously there's loads more questions than just on Knockout, right? So what would be ideal strategy for that?
Are you talking directly on the test? For test or general knowledge? Talking directly on the test.
I think one of the questions that came from yeah, I think it's on the test. I think somebody's just asking that some of those questions I'm not would throw them on part of the JavaScript test. So they were asking if it were the case, if they would just have to focus just on the JavaScript one, or do you think having more knowledge over JavaScript in total would be beneficial?
I'm sorry, it's breaking up. I'm having a little difficulty hearing you. I'm sorry, it's breaking up. I'm having a little difficulty hearing you.
Yeah, sorry, but I think we're having some difficulties. It seems to be going really slow. Mark, if you could answer these questions in the Q&A, that would be lovely.
I hear you.
Okay. If you could answer these questions in the Q&A, that would be lovely. I think we're just falling short of when we need to kind of be wrapping up. It was a pleasure to have you here. It was absolutely nice to know about Campus and what is coming out and what we can join in and actually go through. I know I, for one, will be joining on that. So thank you so much for that.